Let's see what these scoundrels are doing to cheat. Teachers, what is the cleverest or dumbest way you've seen a student cheat?
Happened this year. Not the first time I posted this. Kids sat at the back of the exam hall. All pupil bags piled up at the back. One bag keeps beeping as messages come in. Regulations state bags must be removed and phone investigated. Phone is receiving text with the answers to the exam being sent. Pupil in question has Galaxy smartwatch on. He takes photo of questions with his watch when he knows he's not being observed. Watch auto syncs with phone, which auto Dropboxes his photo. Parent at the other end then accessing Dropbox to see questions and replying with answers. Phone sends text message to the watch. Kid effed up and was caught because he forgot to put his phone on silence. It was a mock exam. I still don't know if they were doing this as a trial run or were just a little dumb. Years ago, I was an assistant language teacher in the JET program. I was crap at Japanese. I could buy stuff and manage, but, well, crap. I decided I would learn some kanji. So I applied for the 10th level of the Kanji Kaiten, a test of kanji knowledge for Japanese speakers, and this was the easiest level. So, I showed up for the test, surrounded by 5 and 6-year-olds, which, given I'm 180 centimeters and 100 kilos, was amusing. Lots of first-year elementary students going, "Whoa, look at that big foreigner," basically. Anyway, I took the test, and part of it is translating one form of phonetic Japanese to another hiragana to katakana. In particular, one question was asking me the katakana version of you. I blanked. I quickly looked through the test to see if they used the character, as I was sure I'd recognize it if I saw it. No dice. As I was doing this, I noticed a 6-year-old girl beside me doing something on the table with her hand. I kinda glanced for a second, didn't register right away. Besides, test. Needed to work on that. At the end of the test, they gave you the answers right away, and this question was sticking in my head, so I checked it out. Ah, you, of course. And that's when I realized the 6-year-old beside me had been drawing that character on the table. She had seen me struggling and decided to help, and I was too dumb to understand it. 6-year-old tried to help me cheat at a kanji test, but I'm dumber than a first grader. My PhD advisor shared this story with me. He was teaching an organic chemistry class, and after the exams, the students could look over their midterms and submit them for regrades if they believed there was a grading error on their test. A certain clever student used whiteout to turn a couple of particularly low-scoring pages of his exam blank, then photocopied these pages. With these blank exam sheets in hand, he then correctly answered the questions on the page and used red pen to grade these phony correct responses as incorrect. He carefully restapled these pages into his original exam and submitted the doctor test for a regrade. When my professor saw how utterly horrible the grading errors were, he became suspicious. He went into the lab and examined this exam under a black light. What he discovered confirmed his suspicions. 7 to 10 pages of the exam glowed green, while the other 3 pages, the ones with the blatant grading errors, fluorescent blue. Conveniently, the next lecture for the class was on photochemistry. He began this class by discussing the nature of fluorescence. He explained how many organic materials contain highly conjugated molecules that can absorb light and re-emit it at longer wavelengths. In fact, many naturally occurring materials such as cotton, wood, and paper contain polymeric molecules called lignins that exhibit this property. He explained that different paper processing methods could lead to different ratios of these compounds, and thus no 2 batches of paper were ever exactly alike. He brought out the doctored exam and a UV light, then demonstrated in front of the entire class how most of the pages of the midterm glowed green, but certain pages glowed blue. He then said, "To the student who submitted this exam, and you know who you are, would you please see me after class? We need to discuss your continued enrollment at this institution." He showed up after class in tears and admitted the whole thing. He failed the course. I had a guy in my Spanish class who lived in Spain for most of his childhood. He finished our final in about 15 minutes, then went to the bathroom. Another guy went to the bathroom 5 minutes later, and when they got out, they changed places. Spanish guy took another 15 minutes to finish his final too. Went back to the back room and took another student's seat. He did this with about 10 students. They all graduated with A's. Some people are doubting the legitimacy of the story, so I'll just explain how we do it in Denmark. In Denmark, We get volunteers to monitor our exams, mostly people from the retirement home. He could easily have asked different people every time, and there is very little chance they even remembered him. The entire exam is 4 hours long, so he had plenty of time. Wow, glad you guys liked the story. Just wanted to mention, I asked my advisor about this today, and he confirmed with me that this story is 100% true. He also mentioned that there were approximately 400 students in the lecture hall when he did this demonstration. The sound of hundreds of students collectively saying, "Holy sh!" was apparently ear-deafening. It took about 5 minutes for people to calm down enough for the lecture to continue. Thanks for popping my gold cherry. Be cool. Stay in school. Student caught swapping pages of midterm and submitting for regrade gets caught by chemistry professor because, well, chemistry. When I was in middle school, we had a teacher who was oblivious to what was going on in the room during tests. We began the year with complex cheating systems, but by the midway point of the year, when we had the old states and capital test, one kid walked over to the USA map on the wall, pulled it down so everyone could see, then walked back to his desk. Our teacher did not notice. It was a middle school near the Jersey Shore. Shoot me a PM if you still think we might know each other. Also, 99% sure the teacher cared and didn't know. First-year teacher, we took advantage of a lot, but she was trying still. The most clever was when students would take their online quizzes. They'd have to take them in the lab on campus with a proctor. The test used to be set up so that it would give the students feedback and show the right or wrong answer for a few seconds on the screen. Students started taking pictures of these with their cell phones. Keeping in mind, there are 6 quizzes per level and 4 levels. So we're talking about 24 quizzes at an hour, 1.5 hours each. Enough students started doing this when the teacher wasn't looking. Classroom setup not really conducive to keeping an eye on every student all the time. That they had accumulated basically all the right and wrong answers for every question in every quiz. We teachers found out and had to throw away all our tests and rewrite them from scratch. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen was when I was teaching at a private degree Millish college. I taught night and weekend students who had no base of English, little time to study, and zero desire to learn. Some students, particularly elementary ed majors, literally spent more time and energy complaining about having to learn English than actually attempting to learn it. In one of these classes, there was a written short essay test. Anyway, the assignment was to write about your favorite holiday, why you like it, and what you did last time. Mother's Day had just passed, so I made that one of the options, suggestions. It's worth mentioning then that the term Mother's Day was written in the instructions. Anyway, one of my students submits this essay talking about Day of the Breast. Day of the Breast? What she did on Day of the Breast. What happened was she used Google Translate, as many students do, and had zero language skill as for identifying misnomers and basic proofreading. So, what's with Day of the Breast? She wrote Dia de la Mama in Google Translate instead of Dia de la Mama. Another time, one of my college professors told a story about a student who emailed him a Word document filled with random symbols to make it seem as though the file was corrupted so he could have more time writing his paper. This professor was very tech-savvy and figured it out pretty quick. When I was a freshman in college, first semester, I was in an intro biology course. It was a big class, probably 200 students. The syllabus stated there would be 5 exams throughout the semester, and at this point, we had already taken the first one and knew that the exam consisted of 40 multiple-choice questions, each worth 2.5 points. So, the night before the second exam, I was studying in the library and overheard 3 guys coming up with a plan to share answers. The number of times that they scratched their nail against the desk and tapped their pencil corresponded to the question number and the answer, respectively. On the day of the exam, I listened to their scratching and tapping as a reference to double-check all my answers. I don't know what they scored, but I raked in that sweet 95. I thought this would get buried at the bottom, so I didn't really get into the mechanics of their cheating system. Just to address the questions. For the questions, they had scratched their nails for the 1s and clicked their pens for 5s, I think. Either that, or it was every 10. To be honest, I don't remember perfectly. It was a few years ago, but I think that's how they did it. Oh, also, they had a way to ask each other to repeat a question, but I forgot how they did it. Another story I have is I had a TI-83, and before every test, our teacher would check our calculators and make sure the RAM and archive was cleared and all programs were erased. I wrote a program that brought up the RAM, cleared message, but it did nothing. I then proceeded to write all notes and cheats in individual programs to put them up during the test. Worked flawlessly throughout high school. I wrote about a 4 formula on a glazed donut in tan-colored Sharpie in high school for a pre-calc quiz. I had forgotten we had a quiz that morning until about 10 minutes before class, and it seemed like the best option. It was a short quiz, and I got a 100. Also, the cleverest is by bringing every bit of information into the test with them. In their brain, it's called studying. Another story from my middle school. In 7th grade, one of my pals showed me a very detailed map of the USA that he had drawn on his leg, labeled the state's abbreviations. We were being quizzed on the states that day. He got a C on the quiz. Girl recorded the answers to a test on an MP3 player. She ran a single headphone up her shirt, taped it to the back of her neck, and then to her ear. The thing is, she wore her hair the same way every day. It went just past her shoulders, so her hair hid everything perfectly, and she looked no different than she did any other day. It worked flawlessly. Should have mentioned this originally, but I wasn't the teacher. I was another student at the time, and she told me about it after the fact. Oops! She knew the answers beforehand because it was a test based on memorization, like a spelling test.